Without love, all else will fail. Chapter 1. Love, the central need. As human beings, we are incredibly complex with an endless stream of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual that must be satisfied. Frustration at any of these levels can produce suffering to the whole being. There is one need so fundamental and essential that when not met, causes everything else to fail or fall short of fulfillment. That need is the need for love, love of others and love of yourself. The major cause of human dissatisfaction and frustration is the absence of love. This fundamental human need outweighs all others. Without love, you can never feel a genuine sense of fulfillment. It is the foundation of security upon which you can build a successful life. No matter what you possess, you cannot fully enjoy it unless you are loving yourself and sharing with people you care about. No matter how much you accomplish or acquire in life, it cannot supersede your basic need for love. In essence, what I'm saying is that your biggest problem is your inability to satisfy your need for love, and that because of it, you end up creating all sorts of other problems. That need for love begins with your need to love yourself. When you are not able to love yourself, it becomes very difficult for others to love you. Self-love is essential if you are to receive the love you want and deserve. The need for love outweighs all of our other pursuits. Every person has special qualities that make them unique. Every one of us is born with a unique and special value. There is no one who can be a better you. You have a special place in this universe, and a part of growing up is discovering your own niche, finding out what you have to offer, what you are here to do, and then doing it. This discovery will bring you deep fulfillment and enliven the core of your being. The only way to accomplish this task is to stop masking who you really are and to begin accepting and loving yourself the way you are. You wouldn't be reading this book if you didn't love yourself. A part of you does love yourself enough to say, I do deserve more love, and I'm determined to get it. Maybe this book will help. At least you haven't given up on yourself. Consider this line of questioning. Q. Why do you get upset when people don't appreciate you? A. Because you feel you deserve to be appreciated. Q. Why do you dress in nice clothes? A. Because you want people to like you. Q. Why do you want people to love you? A. Because you feel you deserve it. Deep down inside, you want love, appreciation, and acceptance from people because you feel you do deserve it. But you, like most people, have probably lost touch with that feeling of self-love that you had when you were a small child. What happens when you love yourself? When you love yourself in the presence of others, you are able to express your inner gifts and talents without fear or restriction. The more you love yourself, the more you are able to come out. The more you come out, the easier it is for people to appreciate the real you and not the image you project or the mask you wear. The more people appreciate and love you, the more you can love yourself. It is a cycle of increasing love and true self-expression. I love myself more, I express myself more, people can love me more, I love myself more, etc. When you don't love yourself and you mask your real self, the cycle works in the opposite direction of decreasing love and true self-expression. I love my real self, less I express my real self less, I wear a mask. People can love my real self less, I love my real self less, etc. When you start loving yourself more, you are able to express more of your inner gifts and talents and allow others to love you more. Loving yourself gives you the ability to love others. The world is like a mirror showing us a reflection of who we are. Loving yourself more gives you the ability to love and appreciate others more as well. The world becomes a different place. For each of us, the world is like a big mirror showing us a reflection of who we are. We each see the world through different colored glasses, determined by the way we feel about ourselves. People who hate the world hate themselves. Much of the time, when you are disapproving of others, it is really a part of yourself that you see and dislike. Learning to love yourself and to be yourself is the first step in learning to accept, value, and love others and enriching your relationships. To start your journey towards loving yourself again, let's take a look at where it all began. Where it all began. You were born with an infinite supply of self-love. Self-love is a quality naturally instilled in every baby. Did you ever see a baby that didn't want love and attention and make a big fuss when it didn't get its quota? Can you even imagine a baby complaining, "Give me some space, you're smothering me with love"? As little children, we all loved and accepted ourselves. Only now, as adults, we are afraid to show it or even admit it. We have learned that it can be very risky to love ourselves in the presence of other people, and that it is much safer to hide our self-love. I've found that there are 5 unconscious messages we receive while growing up that can keep us from fully loving ourselves for the rest of our lives. We were conditioned not to love ourselves in 5 basic ways. These messages are: 1. It's not okay to appreciate yourself. 2. It's not okay to desire for yourself. 3. It's not okay to be yourself. 4. It's not okay to make mistakes. 5. It's not okay to express yourself. Loving yourself can be very risky. 1. It's okay to appreciate yourself. Ever since you were young, you were taught that it is not okay to love and appreciate yourself. You learned that to appreciate yourself is vanity, and vanity is not good. You learned that to show how much you really love yourself is dangerous. People will criticize you. Imagine arriving at a party and someone walks up to you and says, "Gee, you look great." If you responded by agreeing with them, "I know, I look gorgeous tonight," they would probably walk away thinking you were really strange. In our society, we learn that when you love yourself openly, others might accuse you of egotism and conceit, and they will reject you. In an attempt to get love and support, you learn to hide your self-love and may even be in the habit of putting yourself down. Gradually, you begin to believe your own propaganda, and your self-love gets repressed and forgotten. You are probably taught that other people won't like you if you like yourself too much. We learn very early to feel guilty about our desires. 2. It's okay to desire for yourself. While growing up, you learn very quickly that the world wasn't created for you alone, and that you can't have whatever you want. You are made to feel selfish and bad for wanting more than you have. In an attempt to be good and lovable, you try to suppress your desires, and as a result, you may become like a robot, acting out the desires of others in order to win their acceptance and love. You may even begin to feel guilty about your dreams and wants, feeling they are selfish. 3. It's okay to be yourself. Children often get the message that in order to get love, they have to earn it or pay for it. You conclude that your worthiness is not in yourself, but in something else: your appearance, your actions, your success, or your ability to do what is expected of you. If you experienced love being turned on and off to you as a child, you probably decided that your worth and goodness depends on your ability to please other people and do what makes them happy. Your self-esteem becomes something based on how much you please others by being good. While growing up, you probably learned that to get love, you had to pay for it. Because you are not perfect, you will feel unworthy of such approval, and you will gradually learn to mistrust love. 4. It's okay to make mistakes. Every child quickly catches on to the reality of conditional love. When we are right, we win, and when we are wrong and make mistakes, we lose love. At the other extreme is the child whose parents attempted to bestow him with unconditional love. Perhaps when you misbehaved or performed poorly or felt badly, your parents ignored the problem or mistakes, pretending everything was fine. As a result, you unconsciously sensed their disapproval or resentment, but you never had an opportunity to be forgiven. In both cases, you know you are not perfect and you feel unworthy of approval when it is given. You learn to mistrust approval from others and fear their disapproval as well. 5. It's okay to express yourself. The result of your need to please your parents and peers in order to get their love is that you lose your spontaneous self-expression. You become preoccupied with becoming like other people and miss the opportunity to explore and express your own uniqueness. When you suppress your inner potential, you live with a sense of inner frustration and failure because you have buried your potential for success. One part of you wants to express itself, but another part wants love and acceptance and will sacrifice self-expression in order to get it. Some people are afraid to succeed, and so they bury their potential. If you cannot love yourself, then you lose your ability to truly receive love from others. Learning to trust love. All of this conditioning to not be yourself in order to get love has an unfortunate result. You lose your ability to truly receive love from others. If a part of you is hiding who you really are, not expressing yourself fully or trying to be like others, you cannot trust the love and appreciation you get from the people you are trying so hard to please. When others express their love for you, a little voice inside says, "Yeah, sure, they wouldn't say that if they really knew me." You try hard to please others, knowing all along that the real you isn't coming out, and this prevents you from feeling good about whatever approval you do receive. In the following chapter, we will explore the various ways you may be hiding yourself. Chapter 2. How are you hiding yourself? The result of your attempt to feel loved and to please others is that, like most people, you have learned and adopted various behavioral strategies designed to get the approval and love you need. These strategies become like roles you play, or personality types you act out, whether consciously or unconsciously. This chapter contains a list of some of the more common examples of personality types you may be acting out. You might notice a part of yourself described in several or even all of them. For each category, I also suggest a few hints for breaking out of these roles and starting to express the real you that is buried inside. These hints are far from complete. Later in this book, I'll offer you powerful and practical techniques for loving yourself and others more. 1. The performer. This person was given a lot of love for performing and excelling as a child. Performance is the assumed condition for love and recognition. He is always trying to measure up to the expectations of others and many times self-imposes even higher expectations. He always feels pressured and driven to achieve, and there is no time for rest. He cannot tolerate weakness or stupidity in himself or others, and tends also to be very critical. The performer feels pressured to measure up. For him, there is no rest. He feels driven to achieve and perform. The performer needs to relax more and discover that he can be loved even when he is not performing. Secretly, the performer feels he can never be good enough, since there is always room for more growth. This type may become very attached to people and positions, since a secret fear of rejection or abandonment motivates his behavior. He generally feels responsible for everything. The performer needs to relax more and discover that he can be loved even when he is not performing. Take more vacations and read romantic novels. Give yourself a break. The high blood pressure isn't worth it. 2. The critic. The critic is preoccupied with finding, pointing out, and talking about the faults of others. He rejoices in criticizing and belittling those around him. He may hate part of himself, projecting that quality onto others, and then becoming extremely critical and judgmental of them. Whenever he is afraid of being judged, he is quick to retaliate with a string of judgments, often sarcastic in nature. For him, the best defense is a strong and critical offense. The critic is obsessed with changing or even punishing others in a subconscious attempt to change himself. He is able to soothe his own feelings of inadequacy by proving the shortcomings of others. If you have these traits, try to begin seeing yourself in all those that you judge and criticize. Imagine yourself in their footsteps. Look for a way in which you are like them. Then forgive yourself and forgive them for not being perfect. Just as you are good at finding reasons to separate, try finding reasons to feel connected to others. What the critic hates about himself, he will find and criticize in others. 3. The boaster. This person compensates for low self-esteem by always exaggerating the truth and bragging. While growing up, he learned that to get attention he had to dramatize and enlarge the truth. The boaster doesn't plan to lie. It happens automatically. Even if the real truth is worthy of attention, he must enlarge it. The boaster has learned to get attention by dramatizing and exaggerating the truth. Deep inside, the boaster feels he is not good enough to warrant love and attention. He feels the truth is never enough for him to achieve the recognition he needs in his own eyes and in the eyes of others, so he stretches the truth. The boaster can never trust the love of others, for deep inside he knows he is lying. The closer people get, the more secretive and defensive he becomes. And the more he boasts, the less he trusts the attention and appreciation he gets. The boaster must practice being accurate in what he says and learn that others will still love him. The boaster needs to practice being very accurate in what he says. He should find someone who truly does care for him and share with that person all the lies and pretenses he can remember and see that he can be loved for who he really is. The boaster must learn to trust again, both himself and others. He needs consistent and honest feedback. To be easy on him is not doing him any service. Whenever something bad happens to a victim, you can be sure their story gets a lot of mileage. 4. The victim. This person was generally hurt very deeply at a young age and got a lot of sympathy. The victim feels unworthy of love and support unless it is preceded by a great mishap or tragedy, or at least the telling of some past tragedy. Whenever something bad happens to the victim, you can bet that story gets a lot of mileage. If you are getting a lot of love, attention, and sympathy by telling your victim stories, watch out. You are reinforcing a pattern of getting love through experiencing and communicating about pain and suffering. So if your stories get old and you want some love, presto! You will create a new dramatic tragedy. You might even use getting sick as a way of getting more love. The victim usually feels powerless in life and tries to control people by making them feel guilty. He refuses to take responsibility for his life, so quite subconsciously, others get sucked into trying to please the victim and make him happy. The victim must learn to develop his own personal power through taking responsibility for his life. He must resolve his stored-up, repressed anger and practice forgiving others. Victims must learn to develop their power by taking responsibility, expressing their anger and then forgiveness. The nice person is always doing what he should be doing and has lost touch with what he really wants. 5. The nice person. This person is always good-tempered, cheerful, and very agreeable. He makes a great friend and generally has a lot of friends and acquaintances. The nice person learned early in life that compliance brings a reward, a smile, or an embrace. He submits to every rule and regulation with mechanical precision. He is always doing what he should be doing, intent on pleasing others, saying yes to everyone. The nice person never gets angry, but learns to accept and adapt to every situation. He never rocks the boat. On the surface, the nice person is happy and content to be a part of the group, but inside he is empty and alone. He is very afraid of being himself, for to do what he wants means risking disapproval. So, he has lost touch with what he really wants and who he really is. He has done everything right, and according to the rules, but secretly feels controlled and cheated, lifeless and bored. The nice person is trapped. He can never really open up because others would find out he is really not so nice. By being nice, he has successfully repressed his own special uniqueness and has become a non-person. The nice person needs to practice saying no and meaning it. He needs to learn to express his anger. He must risk showing the not-so-nice person inside and see that not only will others still love him, but that they may even feel closer to him because now he is more real. The nice person needs to practice saying no and meaning it. The self-righteous person can never admit that he is wrong, for to confess his faults could mean the loss of love. 6. the self-righteous person. This person has learned that if he is wrong, people will not love him and will consider him bad. In order to get love, he attempts to be right at all costs. He can never admit that he is wrong, for to confess his faults and failures would mean the loss of love and would be very painful to him. The self-righteous person often tries to make others wrong in order to be right himself. He has a rational excuse for everything he does. He could even become a great teacher. But don't try to have an argument with the self-righteous person, because it will sound more like he is lecturing you on why you are wrong and he is right. The self-righteous person needs to start practice saying, "I'm sorry," whenever he makes a mistake, even when he has a great excuse. Rationalization and justification are favorite ways of avoiding feelings, especially the feeling of guilt. This person needs to learn that others will love him, even if he is wrong or makes a mistake. The angry person feels ripped off by life and is constantly trying to get even. 7. The angry person. This person walks around with a chip on his shoulder. For him, anger is a protection. It is a roar to scare away adversity. The angry person feels an inner inadequacy and is always trying to protect himself. To compensate for that feeling of inadequacy, he refuses to be adequately satisfied by the outer world. Nothing can please him. He projects his own inadequacy everywhere, hence feeling frustrated and bitter towards the world. The angry person feels ripped off by life and is constantly trying to get even. He gets angry at the drop of a hat and remembers every injustice he has ever experienced. He delights in the shortcomings and failings of others and thus becomes overly competitive. The angry person is stuck in feelings of anger and blame as a cover-up for his own feelings of inadequacy and hurt. He must learn that he still deserves love, even if he is inadequate in certain areas. Each day he should practice the love letter technique, taught later in this book, and forgiveness. Through loving and forgiving others, he will learn to truly love and forgive himself. 8. The fake. This person has played so many roles that he doesn't know who he is anymore. Behind every mask is another. He is always acting according to how others will receive him. The fake will not risk controversy. He is an expert at impressing others in order to be liked. He plays the roles he thinks others want him to play, and in the process becomes a hypocrite and a fraud. The fake probably never felt appreciated for being himself while growing up. So he decided that in order to get love, he had to be someone else, whomever others wanted him to be. Unfortunately, he can never trust anyone's love or appreciation, because deep inside he knows he is a fake and that others don't know who he really is. The fake has played so many roles that often he loses sight of who he really is. Behind every mask is another. The believer has become so dependent on others for truth that he loses touch with reality. 9. The believer. This person has become so dependent on others for truth that he doesn't believe his own feelings. He learned growing up that to receive love, he merely has to agree and believe what others tell him. If you have a common belief, then the believer is your friend, and if you contradict his belief, you are his enemy. The believer loves to give away his own power and responsibility to others who can solve his problems for him. He expects you to love him because he agrees with you. If you disappoint the believer's unrealistic expectations, he will withdraw his love and support. The believer has never gotten over the fact that his parents were not perfect. He always has high hopes, but is inevitably let down by others, and will continue to be until he starts to believe in himself. The believer must learn to take responsibility for his own life and forgive all the people who have let him down. He should question all he believes and relate it to his own personal experience. The believer needs to learn to trust his own feelings, instincts, and choices, and look to himself as the source of power and wisdom in his life. The believer needs to question all that he believes and relate it to his own personal experience. The shy person's basic reaction to people is fear. He has little confidence that he will be loved. 10. The shy person. This person's basic reaction to other people is fear. He fears their criticism. He fears their evaluation of him as a failure, and he fears their inevitable rejection in the end. The shy person has little confidence that he is lovable to others. He has been taught that people will only accept him under certain conditions, and if those conditions aren't present, he fears rejection. He may be an incredible musician or performer on stage, but off stage, he becomes shy and insecure. The shy person must learn to take risks. He should practice visualizing a risk and then act it out, gradually building up more confidence in himself and dispelling his fear of others. He needs to come out more and learn to trust himself and others again. The shy person should visualize a risk and then act it out and gradually build up more confidence. The show-off believes that what he owns will make up for what he fails to be himself. 11. The show-off. The show-off believes what he does or possesses will make up for what he fails to be himself. He seeks to compensate for his own lack of self-esteem by owning big things, hoping this will attract the attention and recognition he desperately needs. To the show-off, money is the symbol of love, and without it, he fears he will lose love. He cannot ask for love, but tries to buy it. He is unable to share his feelings directly, but does so by giving or withholding presents and material possessions. Unfortunately, the show-off never feels worthy of the love he does receive, because he knows he is being loved for his achievements and possessions, and not for being himself. He often feels used and unappreciated. The show-off needs to practice sharing his feelings and allowing others to see who he is inside. He needs to work on his inner self-image and relax his outer image. Then he will learn that he can be loved for who he is and not for what he has or what he does. The show-off needs to practice sharing his feelings and allowing others to see who he is inside. 12. The loner. This person is always proving that he doesn't need others. At some point while growing up, he didn't get the love and recognition he wanted, so he decided he didn't need it. The loner has learned to become self-sufficient. Inside, he is an incredibly sensitive and caring spirit who has been hurt too many times. He has learned to care less, to be detached from his feelings, for to feel them would be too painful. The loner feels guilty for needing so much love, and thus he denies his needs. "I can do it alone," he proudly proclaims. "I don't need you." Because he doesn't express his needs clearly, he is continually disappointed and hurt in relationships. He will also resent feeling obligated to satisfy his partner's needs, just as he resents having his own needs. To the loner, needs are a sign of weakness. At some point, the loner could not get the recognition and love he wanted, and so decided he didn't need it. The loner needs to share his needs and wants. He must reveal to others his secret expectations and disappointments. The easiest choice for the loner is to just avoid relationships and live alone. The more he feels his needs, the more he will separate and retreat, thus pushing out the very love he needs so desperately. The loner must learn to share his needs and to show his hurt and tears. He should reveal to others all of his secret expectations and disappointments. Whenever he starts to sulk and retreat, he should find someone he cares about and share his feelings. The loner needs to learn that need is not a dirty word and to find people in life who can fulfill his needs for love and appreciation. The sacrifice has learned that to love means to sacrifice or to give up for another. 13. The sacrificer. This person learned that to love means to sacrifice or to give up for another. Probably while growing up, the scarifier's parents never let him forget how much they sacrificed and how they expected the same from him. For him, loving is a tiresome matter because to show his love, he must always do what he prefers not to do, or give up what he wants to keep. The sacrificer can never be what he wants to be, for that would be too selfish. For him, selfless giving with no strings attached, but it is a giving up or self-denial with a definite expectation of receiving the same in return. The sacrificer expects the recipient of his love to return his gift of love through an equally painful sacrifice. I suffered for you, so you suffer for me. For him, suffering is a virtue and is symbolic of true love. The sacrificer must learn to lighten up the heavy load he has placed on love and relationships. He needs to heal built-up repressed anger and resentment towards his parents and others, and to forgive them for laying a heavy guilt trip on him. The sacrificer needs to learn to give love freely without expecting equal sacrifice in return, and at the same time, he must remember not to give up his own needs and desires all the time. The sacrificer needs to lighten up the heavy load he has placed on love and relationships. How successful are you at hiding yourself? Let's see how well you score. Give yourself points on a scale from 1 to 5 for each of the personality types. A T means you play that role rarely, a 3 means often, and a 5 means you fit the description perfectly. To familiarize yourself with these types even further, imagine your family and friends and see how they score. The more you can see these personality types in others, the better you can see them and change them in yourself. Well, how did you do? How did your family do? Remember, until you are aware of what you are doing, you have no choice but to continue doing it. Practice the instructions for each of the personality types, along with the heart techniques taught later in this book, Chapter 8, and you will be on your way to loving yourself more. Having explored some of the reasons we don't fully love ourselves, let's now look at some of the reasons why our relationships don't fully manifest the love that they deserve. In Chapter 3, we will take a look at what happens in our relationships. Chapter 3. What happens in relationships? It's easy to fall in love, but it's a lot harder to stay in love. We all want love to last. We all want to live happily ever after. No one decides to get married and says to their partner, "Hey, honey, I've been thinking. Let's get married and have a wonderful 2 or 3 years together. Then, let's get tired of each other and get divorced. What do you say?" Or, "Darling, let's live together and have a great sex life for 5 years, then let's start fighting, feel resentful, have some extramarital affairs, and then split up." No one falls in love and plans to fall out of love. But it happens, and when it happens, it hurts. No one falls in love and plans to fall out of love, but it happens, and when it does, it hurts. What is the norm? Approximately 1 out of every 2 marriages in the United States ends in divorce. Out of the couples who do remain married, it's certain that a good number are no longer in love or happy together, despite the fact that they aren't officially divorced. These statistics are not encouraging. Their real message to you is that if you plan to get married, you have a 50-50 chance of getting a divorce. If you are reading this and are already married, or just in a relationship with someone, the same unpleasant forecast applies to you. You don't have to be a gambler to see that these are pretty terrible odds. You probably wouldn't invest your money in a business deal if you were told you had a 50% chance of losing it. Yet, like most people, you continue to get involved in relationships without thinking much about how to avoid joining the ranks of the 50% that don't make it. There's no way to definitely ensure that any relationship will last, but you can at least learn to preserve the love that you had. Let's take a closer look at the 50% of relationships that succeed. Stop right now and ask yourself this question. How many couples do I know whom I admire, whose relationship seems like one I would like to have for myself? If you are like most people, you will have a hard time coming up with many examples of good relationships. Between 40 and 70% of married couples aren't satisfied with their partners and have had outside affairs. One recent survey showed that the greater the household income, the more affairs the couples had. It's obvious from these statistics that money is not the solution to marital happiness. The American dream of a house, 2 cars, and a happy family has ended in divorce all too many times. When you're not satisfied with your present partner, you may begin to fantasize about others. Some people keep up the appearance of a loving relationship when really the love has died. Many people who stick it out in relationships aren't even able to look at their problems and admit to themselves and their partner that they aren't satisfied. They pretend to be happy when they are really feeling resentful, sad, or numb. They must pretend because it would hurt too much to look at the truth. They are afraid to look at their problems because they don't have a solution, so they keep up the appearance of a relationship while all the time they are dying inside. Sometimes the loneliest place in the world is lying next to someone who doesn't love you anymore, or someone you have stopped loving. How many times have you felt surprised when you heard friends of yours were getting a divorce or splitting up? On the surface, everything looked great, but the love was dead. What are the options? Most people don't know how to solve their problems with love and relationships, and end up approaching those problems in one of several ways. The first option, of course, is to just ignore the problems and hope that they will go away. Another method is to justify the problem and tell yourself that there is no such thing as the perfect relationship, and to expect more is immature and unrealistic. You can also try blaming it all on your partner. You may even leave that partner and find another, only to find yourself facing the same problems all over again. Some people go from partner to partner, trying to avoid conflict and problems, and others decide that it is less scary to stay stuck in a relationship than to risk leaving it, and they just give up. If you are one of these people who has just given up, I hope that reading this book will give you the courage to look at your problems and begin solving them rather than accepting a life devoid of love. One of the ways we deal with our problems is to blame them on other people. Contrary to popular belief, relationships do not have to be doomed to mediocrity and boredom. Have you ever felt, "I love my partner, but I'm no longer in love"? Unfortunately, the typical response to this complaint by family, friends, and even many psychologists is, "Don't be immature. Face the facts. Romantic love can't last. It's a trade-off. You sacrifice passion for security." Contrary to popular belief, love and romance can last. Relationships do not have to be doomed to mediocrity and boredom. That flame of love and excitement that you shared in the beginning can remain burning and can even burn brighter. Think back to a time when you saw a couple really enjoying each other's presence, looking very much in love. You probably assumed that they had just met or that they were having an affair. This negative conditioning about love lasting is very deeply ingrained in us from an early age. Some people are outraged when they see two people in love. Who taught you how to love? You may not enjoy reading this next line, but you learned how to love and have relationships by watching your parents when you grew up. Most of this education occurred before the age of 6, and you may be very unconscious of its influence on you. If you saw your parents lying to one another, you learned to lie. If you saw them hiding their true feelings, you learned to hide yours. If you saw them punish each other, you learned to punish and withhold your love. Long before you had your first real intimate relationship, you were thoroughly trained and conditioned, and unfortunately, most of that conditioning taught you more about how not to love and communicate than about how to love and effectively communicate your feelings. Would you like to have a relationship just like your parents' relationship? Long before you had your first intimate relationship, you were thoroughly trained and conditioned. In order to start making love work, admit to yourself that you need to learn more about it. Relearning love. If you want a relationship that is better than the one your parents had, if you want love to work for you, you have to work at it. Start by admitting to yourself that you need to learn how to make love work and that from looking around at everyone you know, you are not alone. Let go of your pride and feel the need you have deep inside for more intimacy, appreciation, and love. The easiest way to learn is to pretend that you don't know anything about love. Try adopting beginner's awareness as you take this next step. Enriching your relationships is an art and a science, just like building a bridge, making a meal, or playing an instrument. It takes skill and practice and daily application of those skills. Like all arts and sciences, enriching your relationship will seem like a mystery, like something impossible to comprehend until you have worked with it long enough to master it. Then it will be second nature. Enriching your relationship can be learned. Already in my seminars, I have taught thousands of people to do so. Read on with an open mind and a willingness to practice mastering love. Enriching relationships. Everyone is always trying to enrich their relationships either consciously or unconsciously. No matter how much someone may act like they don't care, you can bet that underneath their defensive armor is a gentle spirit that wants to love and be loved. Behind every motive and action is the desire to be loved and appreciated and a longing to share ourselves with others. Behind every scary front is a gentle spirit that wants to love and be loved. People are frustrated trying to make relationships work because they have not learned a successful method. If everyone is trying to be more loving and kind to one another, why are so many marriages breaking up and families being torn apart? Why are there so many lonely people in the world? Why do people continue to hurt one another? Talking about love and having good intentions are just not enough. After many years of counseling couples who had problems in their relationship, I came to realize that in most cases, there was really nothing wrong with the people who came to me for counseling. However, there was something wrong with the methods they were using in trying to enrich their relationships. Most people start out attempting to work on their relationships and end up frustrated and hopeless. In many cases, because they have not learned effective communication skills, the more they try to fix their relationship, the worse it gets. As a result, the problems get ignored and accumulate over time. People unnecessarily accept the state of their relationships because they have no workable solution. They have no choice but to accept or try again with somebody new. The more you try to change who you are in order to please others, the less you are able to love who you really are. As a result of unsatisfactory relationships, many people today are obsessed with changing themselves, hoping that when they change, their life will improve. Creating more love in your life has nothing to do with changing who you are or with trying to change others. As a matter of fact, that just gets in the way. The more you try to modify your behavior in order to act like you think you should act, the less you will be yourself and the harder it will be for you and others to love you. There is nothing wrong with change except when it prevents you from being who you really are. As long as change is motivated by self-hatred, it can never create more love. You may become more powerful, you may get a better job, you may even make new friends. But you're not going to love yourself more. You may succeed at convincing others that you are more worthy of their love, but deep down inside, you will never feel truly loved and accepted for just being you. As long as self-improvement is motivated by self-hate, it can never create more love.